Hi everybody, Brian Bush. If you're with me now, you're on video number 3 from our Yield Pyramid Lunch and Learn series here. So in particular, we're going to focus on our big macronutrients here, potassium and phosphorus. So why does potassium matter to us? So when you look at the yield chart here, the yield pyramid, we're on the third box now. Potassium is needed in pretty high quantities here. So if you think about N, P, and K, those nutrients are used in the hundreds of pounds per acre. So when you think about this, 250 bushel corn crop removes 50 pounds of K2O with a grain. That's 117 pounds of potash. You know, I've got some guys, you talk to them and they say, hey, kind of pat themselves on the back, say, I put on 100 pounds of potash every year, whether the crop needs it or not. You look at it and go, okay, you're harvesting about 200 bushel corn, right? Maybe a little bit higher than that. They go, yeah. This is not just what the crop needs. This is just what gets taken up and sold with the grain. So potassium in particular, corn plants will take up extra. It helps with water transportation from the bottom of the plant, from the roots to the top, helps fight off diseases. So it's called luxury consumption. So this is what goes with the grain. There's even more that gets utilized in the stover, in the plant itself. So managing that makes a lot of sense. This is corn. How about soybeans? We have 80 bushel soybean levels highlighted here. Beans need more potassium than corn does. So an 80 bushel bean crop is going to remove 92 pounds of K2O, which is in 187 pounds of potash. So understanding what your yields are, how many bushels you're taking off, are you replacing that when you go out to fertilize? Make sure you got that crop covered, whether you're replacing what you took off or feeding the next crop that comes along. So why is this important? Think about crop uptake, crop utilization. So you look at this chart here. This shows our big 3, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. When is it taken up by the plant and how much do you need? So early season here, you don't need a whole lot. From planting to V6, your phosphorus is peanuts. Your potassium is about 1 pound per acre per day. What happens when we get to that grain growth phase? When we start putting on, it's growing, like a leaf every 2 days, 3 days. It seems like it adds a foot every week. That's at V6 to V12. Look how much things jump up. On potassium in particular, from V6 to V12, we're using almost 7 pounds of potassium per acre per day. Then we jump from V12 to R1, it jumps up to 8 pounds per acre per day. Doesn't sound like much until you hit a bad stretch. So let's say you're a no-tiller. I broadcast all my fertilizer on the soil surface. I never work it in. How far does the potassium move down the soil? Not much. Think back to this past year. We had a dry June. How dry was that soil? From my experience, that top inch and a half dried out. When that happens, roots don't go into dry soil. So while my fertilizer sits on the soil surface, the roots can't access it. Can I supply 8 pounds, 7 pounds per day? In that case, probably not. That's why we saw in many cases shorter plant stature. We saw artificial potassium deficiency, yellowing on the edges of those leaves. Not that we didn't have enough potassium in the field, it just was not in a place the roots could access it. So getting our fertilizer down that root zone, whether it be a vertical till, light tillage, something like that. I know tillers are just screaming at the screen right now, don't do that, can't do that. I understand, but let's go the opposite way. Let's say we get saturated. Now all of a sudden, the roots are not taking up anything. There's not enough oxygen in this root zone for the plant to access and pull in nutrients because we're completely flooded. We still need that 7 to 8 pounds of potassium per day. What's happening? We're cutting yield potential. So we're not supplying that growing plant with the nutrients it needs. So just something to keep in mind there. Potassium is needed in more pounds per day than even nitrogen is at these early stages. Post-tassel, we fall off, we still need some, but we don't need near as much. It's all about priming that plant early, getting into the plant, making sure we can maintain that high yield potential. How about phosphorus? A little bit different here. 250 bushel corn crop is taking off 88 pounds of P2O5 in the grain. So depending on your phosphorus source, that's either 168 pounds of MAP, 190 pounds of DAP, or triple superphosphate. How about in soybeans? Again, 80 bushel soybeans, we're removing 64 pounds of P2O5, which is 123 pounds of MAP, or 139 pounds of DAP, or triple superphosphate. I mentioned on the last one there about potassium. How much does it move? Well, in the case of both potassium and phosphorus, they move primarily through diffusion, which means they go from areas of higher concentration to areas of lower concentration, slowly moving out there. Nitrogen is mass flow. It gets into that soil moisture and then disperses and moves across that whole thing as water moves through there, which is why we get a heavy rain event. Nitrogen goes down, so it goes via mass flow. Sulfur moves via mass flow at the bottom there. Phosphorus, potassium is more diffusion. So starting from areas of higher concentration and moving to lower areas. So lentil's not really percent. But on the flip side, again, I'm a no-tiller. All my nutrients are on the soil surface, right? How much does phosphorus move? Over a growing season, phosphorus moves 0.02 centimeters. So centimeter, 0.02 centimeters. In essence, phosphorus is extremely immobile in the soil. It's not going to move. If it's on the soil surface here, we have a dry June. Guess what? Roots aren't going to grow into that dry soil. So now all of a sudden I cannot access. I spent money on the fertilizer. I'm fertilizing at the right rates. I variable rated to make sure I'm getting there. I've got a third party paying from top crop to say, here's how much I should be putting on. But because I'm not stirring it in, getting in that root area where you have moisture, that phosphorus is not available with that plant. Now, our phosphorus needs are much less than what we have with potassium, but still important. We've got to have the nutrients out there at the right time in a form that can be accessed by the plants and a space that the roots can bring it in. So, one last thing about that, as we think about our crops, what are the nutrients we need here? So in particular, we have our primary macronutrients, our secondary macronutrients, and our micronutrients. We can start arguing now, we can wait. Are these all the micronutrients? Find the right person that want to argue all day long here. But the big thing, so our primary macronutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. We need those in the hundreds of pounds per acre. Between plant uptake and then crop removal, when we sell the grain, that's hundreds of pounds going to be utilized in the growing season. Secondary macronutrients, sulfur, calcium, magnesium, are on the tens of pounds per acre. One thing that irks me a bit is when people start talking about micronutrients and micropacks. They talk about sulfur. We need 25 to 30 pounds of sulfur within our corn and soybean crops there. So it's not really a micronutrient because micronutrients, next one here, are using fractions of a pound per acre. The biggest ones are like several ounces. So the difference between secondary macronutrients and micronutrients is massive when you need. Now don't get me wrong, you have to have them. You can't go without them, but you don't need very much at all. Lastly, just kind of as a fun fact here, our free nutrients. Up at the top, carbon, oxygen, hydrogen. We need almost, it's on the order of thousands of pounds per acre. There's one estimate out there that's talking about carbon. We take 30,000 pounds of carbon in an acre of corn. Similar number of oxygen, hydrogen, a little bit less than that, but still unbelievable amounts. But we kind of count for coming for free because they come from carbon in the atmosphere, oxygen and hydrogen from water or from the air as well. So even though the plant gives off oxygen, it still needs so much more oxygen that it puts inside that plant just to help that plant move and operate. So one more slide on this, I'm going to jump off and we'll switch. When you think about yields, why do we have P and K on the higher end here? Well, in particular, this is a trial that looks at pounds of nutrient per bushel. So if we look at these, nitrogen, sulfur, phosphorus, potassium, these actually increase. It takes more phosphorus to grow 299 bushel of corn than it does 207 bushel of corn. So as you get to higher and higher yield levels, it takes more of the nutrient. Conversely, if we look at zinc, magnesium, we still gotta have them, they're still there, they're important. But we use roughly the same amount per bushel, regardless of the yield level we're at. So we think about higher yielding corn, higher yielding soybeans. We need more nitrogen, more sulfur, more phosphorus, more potassium, when we get to these higher yield levels, we're just not as efficient at those higher yield levels. So we need more of the nutrient out there. So hope that helps on the phosphorus potassium discussion. Stay tuned for the next session.